In the streets of New York, Spider-Man found himself surrounded by the Avengers. According to him, She-Hulk, Blade, Captain America, Captain Marvel, Thor, and Black Panther were all being mind-controlled. While a mysterious observer was satisfied by the turn of events, Spider-Man explained that the device in his hand was called the Resequencer, something that reshuffled a person's thoughts without them even realizing it. They were all being played by someone who calls himself the Grand Manipulator, who'd apparently taken control of them the day before during a big warehouse fight. Thankfully, Spider-Man had a friend at the university who was prepared to deactivate the thing and free their minds. Captain America was all for Spider-Man's idea. They were all in favor of resolving things without a fight. The only problem was that they were pretty sure Spider-Man was the one being mind-controlled. Spider-Man shot him an unconvinced look since he was pretty sure that was exactly what a mind-controlled person would say. Thor calmly approached Spider-Man, asking him to please hand over the device. From their understanding, if his friend were to deactivate it improperly, it would scramble the minds of every person in New York, including Spider-Man's. And Thor really liked Spider-Man's mind and found it amusing. Sometimes it got a bit annoying, but mostly it was pretty amusing. Spider-Man let Thor know that he gets that pretty often, and Thor was not surprised to hear that. But Spider-Man was now pretty convinced that they would not be able to get through all this without a fight, and he really didn't want to fight the Avengers and believed he'd probably lose, which Thor agreed with. But despite his reluctance, Spider-Man thwipped into action, web-slinging away as Captain America called on Iron Man to take care of things. As Iron Man rocketed towards him, he told Spider-Man that he needed to trust them since they were all friends. Spider-Man would love to talk it all through, but if he didn't disable the device in the next 10 minutes, they'd all end up stuck like this forever. So, for his own good, they'd have to take Spider-Man down. And the feeling was mutual as Tony's suit malfunctioned when he got too close. Captain America was shocked. It turns out Spider-Man shorted out Iron Man's suit. He was fine, but had no idea how Spider-Man pulled it off. Black Panther explained that Spider-Man is a highly intelligent individual and he's had a total of 12 hours to come up with ways to defeat them. And so, Spider-Man raced through traffic. She-Hulk chased after him, telling Black Panther that there were some things a person couldn't beat, no matter how smart they might be. And she believed that one of her right crosses was at the top of that list. But when she punched, Spider-Man easily vaulted over her. But once he was in the air, the incredibly powerful Captain Marvel managed to grab hold of him by the throat, demanding that he hand over the Resequencer. Just then, Spider-Man apologized to Carol in advance as he flicked something small into her mouth. And just like that, an unbearable clump of webbing filled her mouth and throat, stopping her from breathing entirely. As he got away, Spider-Man told his friend not to panic. He promised her that the webbing would dissolve in less than a minute. As Spider-Man swung near a building, Captain America launched his shield from behind. Thanks to his spider sense, Spider-Man caught it as he flipped and used it to crash into the nearest window. The Observer explained that Spider-Man is amazing, spectacular even. He knew that out in the streets he was way too vulnerable, but in an enclosed space, he would be unstoppable. Inside, the vampire Blade was waiting for him. Spider-Man insisted that he'd have to get past the guy, and Blade challenged him to try. Blade rushed in with an elevated kick as Spider-Man evaded with a backbend handstand. Blade narrowly evaded his extended fist and proceeded to slam his elbow into Spider-Man's jaw once the opportunity presented itself. Spider-Man held his chin and chuckled before landing an even bigger punch on Blade, knocking off his shades. Blade was getting frustrated as Spider-Man bounced about. Spider-Man shot a kick at Black Panther, who'd approached from the other side. Then Blade grabbed hold of the hero from behind to stop his bouncing. Spider-Man slammed the back of his head into Blade's nose while telling him that bouncing was only part of what he does. Spider-Man avoided a kick to the head from Black Panther, who stressed the fact that they didn't want to hurt the webhead. Captain America then caught Spider-Man in a headlock while he was distracted, telling him to believe them. They weren't the bad guys here. Spider-Man used his legs to send both Blade and Black Panther flying back despite the hold, and he dexterously managed to make his way onto Captain America's back. Spider-Man was sure they were still being controlled, but Cap just didn't know it. With the bag in his clutches, Captain America knocked Spider-Man into a bunch of furniture as the Observer admitted that they hate to see heroes battling heroes, friends fighting friends. Unfortunately for Captain America, the bag was empty and the device was in Spider-Man's hands, along with something else. According to the secret Observer, this was all necessary. The threat the universe faced could burn the very atoms that make it up. Throwing the grenade, Spider-Man caught all three men in his webbing at the same time before leaping from the window. As Spider-Man continued his getaway, the Observer wished they could offer solid help here, but ultimately, they could only nudge and guide things in the right direction. Once he was outside again, Thor quickly extended another greeting as he held the hero up by the top of his costume. Slipping out of it and now shirtless, Spider-Man said hi and bye to the god in one breath. Meanwhile, Captain Marvel scanned the area while asking if anyone could see him. On top of a moving bus, She-Hulk wondered if Spider-Man could turn invisible like Miles Morales. While Spider-Man hid on the back of the thing, Iron Man finally caught a glimpse of him. As Spider-Man swung through the city shirtless, he told Tony how silly he was gonna feel when he realized his mind had been taken over by a lunatic who wanted to rule the world. Admittedly, they'd all been there at some point, but before he could finish his point, Iron Man's repulsor blast cut his web line. Skittering on the ground with a downward stance, Spider-Man looked up to see Iron Man tell him not to run unless he wanted to get blasted. After Spider-Man seemed to stand down, he complimented the little gadget the hero used to shut down his suit. Spider-Man was honestly hoping to make it spider-shaped, but didn't have enough time. But hey, maybe next time. Iron Man told Spidey that there wouldn't be a next time since his armor had already adapted to what the device did, which Spider-Man expected to be the case. Just then, Iron Man's suit detected an incongruity as he excused himself for a moment. Thor then offered Spider-Man's shirt in exchange for the contraption. Spider-Man agreed without resistance. He was fond of the classy way Thor said the word contraption. Thor was surprised by how easily Spider-Man handed it over, while Spidey got dressed and played coy. Captain America explained that Spider-Man had switched the device out and now wondered where the real thing was. Spider-Man apologized to his friends. He already knew they'd be able to stop him. He actually passed the thing off to the cyclist from earlier and was just keeping them distracted long enough for his buddy to work his magic. Iron Man was picking up on the resequencer's energy signature, and as Captain Marvel followed, he knew it was being activated. They absolutely needed to make it in time. They crashed through the window of the lab just as Spider-Man's university friend managed to deactivate it. Captain Marvel looked around, wondering how everyone was feeling. Looking around the room, they all felt fine. Their minds hadn't been scrambled. Spider-Man then entered the lab after them, again emphasizing his point that they were all mind-controlled as part of some elaborate plan. But Iron Man corrected him before he could finish. He projected yesterday's CCTV footage from the warehouse that his suit automatically downloaded as they fought. Now, Spider-Man was really confused since that's not how he remembered things happening. He wasn't the one who collapsed. Then, Iron Man showed him footage that his suit had remotely downloaded from the same server a few minutes ago. This time, Spider-Man agreed with the events, wondering if the first one was just a fake. But according to Iron Man, both were real and both had the same timestamp. Black Panther said that their memories had been altered yet again, just like they had been over the course of the past few months. But in this case, there were two distinct strands of reality coexisting within the same timeline. She-Hulk was having a hard time wrapping her head around it all. Spider-Man wondered if the two equally valid strands of reality were by design or mistake. But his so-called friend assured Spider-Man that it was all by design. Spider-Man called out to the Professor, who admitted that this identity of his doesn't exist, or at least, it didn't before yesterday. Spider-Man was shocked by this, since he was pretty sure they'd been friends for ages, but suddenly he realized that the person in front of him was the Grand Manipulator. But instead of manipulating minds, he manipulated reality. The man laughed at this. He doesn't manipulate reality, he tears it apart. Realizing that this was the man responsible for all the fake memories and timelines, Thor wondered why the Grand Manipulator had done this. The Grand Manipulator explained that he needed them all distracted and off balance. Whenever they got too close to discovering his plans, he changed history to set them all on the wrong path. And apparently it was all far easier to do than he'd expected. Captain America then asked who this person really was. The manipulator claimed to be a man of two minds, one human with unrecognized genius, and one alien dimensional explorer who brought with them gifts of insight that no mortal could ever possibly fathom. And now, with the resequencer back in his hands, he'd reshape their world in his own image. But wait, something was wrong. Spider-Man then admitted that his memories of their friendship just didn't ring true to him at all. So he took another look at the device and made some adjustments, just in case. He really hoped his old buddy didn't mind. The manipulator raced towards the thing before crying out one final time as his alien essence escaped. As Spider-Man leaned in to check on the man's condition, he honestly had no idea what just happened. Iron Man planned to teleport the object to the mountain and see what he could make of it there. Since everything seems to have settled down, Spider-Man felt the need to apologize to all his friends. But then again, that might just be because of who he was as a person, since technically he didn't do anything wrong. But before he went any further, She-Hulk put her hand on his shoulder and assured him that everything was fine and that they were sorry too, much to his relief. Then he apologized personally to Captain Marvel about the whole webs in the mouth thing. She didn't look at him directly, but acknowledged his apology at least. And the Observer felt like everything worked out pretty well, all things considered. They said that the heroes were all getting a little too close. They definitely wanted them to figure it out, but on their timetable. Jumping ahead of schedule could ruin everything. But they were confident that if they kept things a bit more subtle in the future, everything would be fine. They were smart after all, even if they were only humans. But as the Observer said all this, Captain America lagged a bit behind the group. Then, when he was all alone, he said hello. The Observer was confused. "I know you're there. I can't see you, but sometimes I think I can feel you. I know you're watching." The Observer wondered who Cap was talking to and what he was doing. Cap admitted that this was all really clever. The whole idea of giving them a new villain who could conveniently take all the blame. The true culprit couldn't have them all asking too many questions. After all, who knows where all that speculation could have led them? The Observer was in panic mode now. Captain America understood that they'd been given the Grand Manipulator to narrow their possibilities. But unfortunately for them, it was too little too late. They'd already made too many mistakes. The longer it went on, the more they had to change and the harder it was to maintain control. Or maybe they just got sloppy. The Observer needed to fix things immediately. Captain America knew he was being heard, that this unknown entity was paying close attention. In fact, if he were Emma Frost or Professor X, he bet he'd be able to see them right now. But regardless, he didn't need psychic powers to recognize this one. The Observer silently begged Captain America to stop, but it was too late. Captain America pointed forward with determination flaring from his eyes. "And I'm coming for you, Beyonder." If you liked seeing Spider-Man fight the Avengers, then you definitely need to watch our video on why they hate fighting the Hulk.